everybody. Today we're talking about chromatic phrases, or specifically phrases that are a little bit outside of your typical minor pentatonic box that a lot of guitar players are familiar with. So I've talked to a lot of students about this one, which is how do you make your minor pentatonic box sound more interesting. For those who don't know the minor pentatonic box, it's a very, very common scale that a lot of guitar players use when they're first starting to learn how to make their own solos. And that scale looks and sounds like this. So your minor pentatonic scale. In this case, the G minor pentatonic scale is what we're working with today. So a lot of guitar players will take this box and start to play around with it, but then a lot of guitar players end up reaching a wall or a ceiling as to how interesting they can make this scale sound. And naturally they start looking at different ways they can make things a little bit more interesting. And of course, as guitar players and the nature of the guitar, people will also look at bending things like that to make things more interesting. But there are also little local areas that if we learn how to play them properly, they can sound pretty cool or pretty jazzy. And that's what I'd like to show you today. What are some of the notes near the minor pentatonic scale that you can access to make things sound a little bit more interesting? So we'll be referring to the solo, which I played at the beginning of the video. If you'd like a PDF for you to use and mark up at home, you can download that from the description below. So the first line of the solo, if you're familiar with the minor pentatonic scale, it's nothing too special. The very first thing that's played is a G minor chord. Then after that you have a phrase inside the minor pentatonic scale, which sounds like this. So it's mostly the minor pentatonic scale, but let's look at some specifics here. So very first note I played is a slide into that note, which is the same note as this. Then I come back to this note, which is the 3rd fret on the 3rd string. Then I come back to the 6th fret and I slide down back to the 5. So playing again, still playing inside the minor pentatonic scale, and then so I'll play that one more time. So right away there is something interesting that if you're not familiar with it yet, I'd like to introduce it to you now, which are the blue notes in the minor pentatonic scale. The blue notes are what makes a solo sound kind of interesting and quote-unquote bluesy. And those blue notes around the minor pentatonic scale are here and here. There's always a debate for what else is a blue note, but these are the most commonly agreed notes that are the blue notes. These notes are great to slide to and slide from. So in this case, I started my solo on a blue note and then slid in to the 7th fret. And then I slid from the blue note into the 5th fret. So it has that bluesy quality. Let me actually play that without the blue note so you can hear what that sounds like. Sounds alright, but sounds a little bit cooler. Same thing with this. So this time I'm accessing the blue note by doing some hammer-ons here. So starting on the blue note here, then hammering on with my 3rd finger. And then playing that note on the 3rd fret of the 4th string. So that full phrase. And then ending. And that covers the blue notes there. Going on to the next phrase. That's just a slide from 3 to 5, and then 3 on the 4th string, 3 on the 3rd string, and then 5th fret on the 4th string there. And then we get to another interesting chromatic device that you can use in your solos. That sounds like this. So there's a few different types of names that this type of playing is called. So some people call this sidestepping, and some people also call this approach note playing here. What you're basically doing is you're thinking of your target note, but then you're approaching that target note from 1 fret away. So in this case, I'm actually thinking of the minor pentatonic scale, but also specifically the notes in the G minor chord, which are these notes here, which can also be called chord tones as well. And what I'm doing basically is I'm thinking of that note, but instead of playing the note, I'm playing the note before that note and then sliding into the note that I'm aiming for. So again, these are the notes I'm aiming, and I'm playing 1 note before, then the target note. 1 note before, target note. 1 note before, target note. So you get. Now, depending on the situation, you can go 1 note before the note or 1 note after the note. Both are considered sidestepping. So kind of has a different sound to it, but the idea is the same, isn't it? So, or, so that's called sidestepping. Then we get to the next phrase. This is kind of a variation on sidestepping. So the idea is the same. You're thinking of those chord tones or the notes of that G minor chord. This time I was playing the note after, before, and then my target note. So this is what's called an enclosure, where you have the note in the middle and then you're playing the notes around the note first and then playing the target note. So you can also do the reverse as well. You can play the note before, after, and then target note. And that has the same effect. Has that same type of idea there. So that's called an enclosure. Then we get to the next phrase. So we started off with our minor pentatonic scale, but then we played these notes here. So in the jazz world, some people call something like this a bebop scale. And the bebop scale is where you have a beginning note and an end note, and then you're basically connecting chromatic notes to get to the note that you're leading to. So and the idea is that you're aiming for that note on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. And then you continue the phrase. Then next we come back to our enclosures again. And then we have this. So this is kind of a combination of 2 phrases that we looked at a moment ago. So this has that first kind of bebop scale leading to the 5th fret, but then it's kind of like a little bit of a psych out. So what's happening there is you're leading to that note, but then before you play that note, you basically end up doing a sidestep or an approach note. So you play the note that's just before that, which makes it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more quote-unquote jazzy sort of thing. So I'll play without that kind of approach note. And with that approach note, and then playing the full phrase, and then we come to our last phrase. So our starting note is on the 3rd fret of the 4th string, but then it goes to the 2nd fret on that same string, which is outside of the pentatonic box. Just so you know what scale this is from, this is actually from the Dorian scale, which sounds like this. So, and then we play, which is actually one of the blue notes that we were looking at before. However, in this context, some people would consider this more of a Lydian sound than the blue note sound. Which is kind of an interesting, almost like a Middle Eastern phrase that you can use. And then from there we climb up the strings. To end there. And what we have here, this is also from the Dorian scale as well. So the full phrase sounds like this. Which is another cool idea that you can use that's a little bit outside of the pentatonic box as well too. Again, if you'd like a PDF of what we played here, you can find that in the description below. Thanks for joining me. Give me a like, a subscribe. Which idea did you like? Did you like the enclosures or the approach notes, the blue notes? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video.